Hello guys, so welcome to Blue Tech Empire Python tutorial channel. This video we are going to be looking at how to install Microsoft Visual Studio Code for Python specifically, even though you can use Visual Studio Code to develop for HTML, JavaScript, Django, whatever you love. There's just a lot of programming languages supported or scripting languages supported by Visual Studio Code. You just need to install the plugins, or they have a name they call it. Just forgotten. We're gonna look at that. You just need to install the plugins, and you get started, do some configurations, and you get started. So even like I think by default you can use HTML. I don't know, but like I'm going to be showing you guys, we have to download we have to install the Python package for Visual Studio to be able for us to be able to write Python scripts within Visual Studio Code. So let's get to the video. Microsoft Visual Studio Code is a product of Microsoft. It belongs to Microsoft, even though I know it's an open source project, and it's also cross-platform. It means you can use it across multiple operating systems, and it's an open source project, and it's under active development and support. So there's just a lot of information you can get about it online. If you get hooked up anywhere using Visual Studio Code, you can go online and you obviously find a solution, even though sometimes the settings look complicated, especially when you need to modify the JSON files for particular configurations. They may look a little bit difficult, but with time you're going to get used to it. And I really love the Intellisense of Visual Studio, because Visual Studio, it had very good intelligence, code completion, code hinting, just-in-time compilation, and everything a programmer will actually dream for is in Visual Studio Code. So most programmers like it, especially usually comes sometimes with Anaconda, but I'm going to show you guys how to install it on your own, on its own. And Anaconda will actually show it sometimes. So let's get to it. But once you want to download Visual Studio, you need to go online. I actually have a copy, but I want to show you the process in case you don't have a copy. You open a browser, and from there type Visual Studio Code download, and next. Now you see Visual Studio code.visualstudio.com, and yeah, Visual Studio Code. All right, so here is the download page, and I want you to take note of a few things. It has, I said it's cross-platform, so you can install it on Ubuntu or Debian operating system. These are Linux operating systems. Ubuntu, a derivative of the Debian operating system, yes, very common. Or you can use, if you have a Mac OS, you can also download it for a Mac OS. So, or if you're using Red Hat, Fedora, these are also other derivatives of Unix or Linux operating system. Now we are on Windows, specifically Windows 10. If you have Windows 7, 8, you can also download it. Now you have various flavors. For example, you can download the zip file. The zip file is usually important sometimes, because if a virus corrupts your EX executable files, usually it doesn't affect a zip file. So usually people love to keep things within zip files. It's it prevents them from being corrupted by viruses. So and you also have user installation. What is a user installer? A user installer installs Visual Studio Code only for the current user. I'm going to show you what that means. For example, the computer I'm currently using has two users. This user which I use particularly for tutorials, and I have another user which I use for other stuff. So if I just want to install it for this user, because the other users may have their own version of Visual Studio Code, and installing a new one may interrupt theirs, something like that. So you want to be careful. If you just want a single user, this is what I want. But if you use your machine or your computer and you have just a single user, and you want to install Visual Studio Code for the whole computer, or you want to install Visual Code once and be able to use it in all the other user sessions, you can download this. Now you either choose a 32-bit or a 64. I already told you guys from previous videos how you can check that. You just need to go to a folder, and you find my PC. From there, you click properties, and you're going to find if your computer is 64-bit or 32-bit. System type, I have 32-bit operating system. If yours is 64-bit, you will see 64-bit. I mean, I have 64-bit. If yours is 32-bit, you will see 32-bit. So like I said, it just deals with the addressing mode of programs executing on the computer. And 32-bit, 64-bit is usually faster than 32-bit for complex or large programs like programs we have these days. So it's always good to upgrade your system to a 64-bit operating system in your computer architecture supports that. So now let's move to the download. So you can download any of these two. What you just need to do is to click, for example, here, and you get the pop-up, and like it kicks off the download almost immediately. Yeah, I have a copy, so I will not be downloading it. So I'm going to cancel this and go back. Now you have documentation. In case you have any problem, you can look at the docs, Visual Studio documentations. Here are docs, if you want to use it for C++, Java, Python, Node.js, that's back-end JavaScript, or JavaScript front-end, you can do that. Data science, Visual Studio also supports Jupyter Notebook, like I told, Azure for Microsoft Cloud, and all this stuff. So you have a lot of stuff you can do with Visual Studio code. So like for example, look at the Python, you have tutorials, you have editing code. So you can come here if you have some difficulties and you want to learn a few things. So here is the Python tutorials. From the Python tutorials, you're able to see how to install Python and a few things, how to configure depending on your operating system. They're going to teach you how to do whatever you want to do. So if you feel stuck somewhere, sometimes you can always come online to check the options. So we are going to do examples like this. You see, it's teaching you how to install whatever is needed. I just want to show you guys. See, here are some stuff you need to know. Python, and all this stuff. So I'm going to show you guys an example similar to this when we install it. So let's go to the installation right now. So I'm going to close this and I'll go to program. So now, like I told you, here is the user setup and here is the system setup. Now if you attempt to run this as administrator, see what happens. You are given a warning. Look at what happens. It tells us the user installation is not meant to be run as administrator, which means since you don't need administrative privilege to install something on your own session, you can this version is actually to install on a single user, not on the whole system. You need administrative privilege to install Visual Studio on the whole system. So I just click cancel, and what I want to do is I don't want to also install it on the whole system. Why? Because I believe the other user has a Visual Studio version, and I wouldn't want to obstruct or somehow interfere with that version by installing a new system-wide Visual Studio version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, just double click, no need to run as admin, and run. Now let's wait for the setup. Agree, I accept the agreement. Next, you can take note of this location in case you need it. Visual Studio Code location, you see, you can just take note of it. New folder, VS Code location. So let's place this here, just in case you may need it sometime in the future. It's just for house cleaning. Okay, some housekeeping. So like next, Visual Studio. Next, create desktop icon. Yes, I want this. Now add to parts. Require share. I may not want to do this right now. Why? Because I may never run Visual Studio from the command line and I don't want any confusion. You may leave this if you have no problem with it, if you really understand it, but I don't want that. But what I want is if I right click this, you see add open with code. What happens is if you right click on a file, you just want, for example, if I right click on this file, you see edit with notepad. So if I check here, if I accept this, next time once Visual Studio is installed, if I click on a file, you see open with Visual Studio Code, which is very good, so I like it. Or you can open a whole folder with Visual Studio Code if you check this. So it's very important. I will uncheck this for now. I don't really want this for now. So I think we are good to go with these three. So next, install. It takes a very short time to install Visual Studio Code. Like you see, user is just for this user, not a system-wide installation. So it's much preferable, easy to uninstall, very easy to uninstall. Now launch Visual Studio Code, we're done. Now we can close this. We can close this. Now let me show you something. Now if I right click on this, look what happens. You now have open with code. Very important. I just want you to take note of that. You can open now files with Visual Studio Code, or if I go one step backwards, how will I do that? Like, I do one step backwards. Let's say, wow, it's not difficult. Let me just look for a folder somewhere. Now, if I click on the folder, look, I can also open a whole folder with Visual Studio Code. Yeah, so that was the reason I actually did why I actually checked those two boxes. You can open a file now using Visual Studio Code, and you can open a folder using Visual Studio Code. So I just wanted to show you these two things. So now let's get started with Visual Studio Code. Very easy. Once we're in here, you don't need to be confused with a lot of things. What we do is we can close this. Um, we can here is some. We can close this, and you may see a couple of other stuffs on your screen like welcome and getting started, all those kind of stuffs. But looks like this is the second time I'm installing Visual Studio on this computer, so I think it cached some stuffs because it looked like it had a cache of something. So well, once you're here now, you want to install Python. You go to extensions. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. It's not called plugins. Visual Studio calls it extensions. So you go to extensions. I just want to reduce the resolution a little bit. Yeah. So that's control plus or control minus to zoom in or zoom out. I'll just zoom in. Now, um, I installed, it looked like it saved the session. I installed Python. I on this way all right. So you come here and you just need to search Python. All right. You see, once you search Python, look for this Python, not Python for Visual Studio Code by this. Look for Python Microsoft because there's a lot of other Python editions, or look for the one with the star. You need to really know because there's a lot of Python stuff you may need. You can want some of this later if you really need them. These are additional stuffs. Python with the PyDev language service and other stuff. Like there's a lot of things, but I advise you to look for Python Microsoft. Very important. You see Microsoft here. Very important. Now let's install this. Okay. Now let's write this. All right. So this is installed and this is installed. When you install Python, it comes with Jupyter. You can now use Jupyter within. You can now create Jupyter notebook within Visual Studio, but I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, you can check the tutorials like here. You can check tutorials on how to do that, how to create Jupyter notebooks with Visual Studio Code. But normally I would prefer to use Anaconda, but you can use this if you want. um Pylance is also like it comes with the installation of Python to help you to do a few things. Python, and lastly we have the Python. So now Python is installed in our Visual Studio. Now Visual Studio depends on our system, Python installed on the system. Like Visual Studio doesn't come with a Python installation like Anaconda. So you need to point to it. In fact, sometimes you don't need to tell it where Python is. Find Python, it will always try to find Python on its own. By now, it has already found where our Python is installed automatically. Like I told you, it's Visual Studio has very good Intellisense and it does a lot of stuff for us, which would have been troublesome. So Visual Studio actually found Python. So let's try to create a new file. So we can close this and but now let's say Visual Studio did not find your Python installation. I'm going to show you what to do first. So let's try to create a new file, and let's hide this file. New file. Let's create a file called mm, let's save it as test1.py. Save as. Let's save it on the desktop on BT Python. Let's just say test1.py. Yes, you can change the language down here. Just type P and you scroll down to look for Python. Yeah, Python. So you can say test1.py, or you don't need to use the .py extension. Visual Studio will do it for you. That's why you have Python here. All right. Now you're ready to go. You see it's loading the Python extension here. Now take note, it's already discovered where our Python is installed already. How did it do that? It tried to type the Python command and a few stuff on its own to actually detect where Python is installed. And it found our Python is installed in app data local programs Python 3.8 python.exe. Like I told you guys, this python.exe showing there at the end, it's the Python interpreter that most IDs always look for. Like we saw in the Eclipse video. If you haven't watched it, maybe you can check out the Eclipse video on how to install Eclipse. That's another IDE from Eclipse. That's for Python. You can check out that video, or you can check out our video on installing Python from crash without any IDE, just installing basic Python, because most IDE already depend, apart from Anaconda, most IDE depend on the Python installed on your computer. So it's always good to start by installing Python first before attempting to install any of these IDEs apart from Anaconda, because Anaconda comes with its own Python. If you're interested in installing Anaconda, you can also check our video on installing Anaconda environment, which is usually used for data science. So for now, let's say it detected our Python. We can prove that's correct because if you type Python and we go to, here is the python.exe file, you go to open file location, find out that that's the actual part. You see app data local programs Python. All right, this is still a shortcut. Let's find the actual part. Open file location. So you see app data local programs Python 3.8, then finally python.exe. Here is the interpreter. So it found Python. So but let's say for example something happened and Visual Studio could not find Python. Now what will happen is, first, if you type an example Python script like print, for example, you see Visual Studio also has Intellisense. It shows you print the value of a stream and it shows you a lot of things. If you write inputs, inputs, it's going to show you this a prompt. If you write length, it's going to show you all this. If you create a list, this one equals to this, and say list one dot, no, this one dot, it's going to show you, in fact it's very good, it's going to show you all the different methods of list one, append, um it's very good. Visual Studio is a good idea, I must tell you. I might also be using it in a couple of video tutorials, because I like it too, because you can actually expand it using Control plus let's say append 2, let's append list one dot append for, and finally print list one. So I like it because, like I'm saying, you can use Control Plus to make it bigger, which is very good for me. If I'm teaching you guys, I need you guys to see clearly. I can do this. So just like I really like the idea. So it's one now. You can now execute this by going to run. See what happens. Here is the output. So you see the output here. PowerShell. Um, so you can type commands here. Python. Let me check. All right. So it even Visual Studio even comes with commands, you understand, which you can type. So like I'm telling you guys, so Visual Studio is very good. So here is when you run, here is the output. All right. So here is the output. Or let me start by printing LOL so that you guys will actually see print where the output started in case you're confused. Welcome, print welcome. Let me put some bars so that you can see clearly. Welcome. Then we have print goodbye. Now take note of this. Now let me run this Control S. See. Now let me run this. Now you see this is actually the output of the code. Is there any way we can clear this? Right, this is not what I was looking for. You can clear. All right, so you see here is the output. Actually, what it does is it types the command Python. It actually types the command python.exe followed by the location of our file, as you can see. So it actually executes our Python. That's why we need Python installed, because it executed python.exe followed by our file. We can do that manually, like I showed you guys. This is just a bonus. Let me show you guys. Here is just a bonus. So here is the file. We stored it here. Test. You can open use shift and right click. You can open a PowerShell prompt here and simply type Python. If you haven't watched the other videos on installing Python, you can check it out. The video on installing Python, I explained this more. Python followed by test.py, and you see it does the same. We execute the program. So Visual Studio actually did the same stuff to produce this output down here. So this is just a simple program. Creates an empty list, append 2 to the list, append 4 to the list, and then prints out the list. So this is what you have as the output. So control minus. So here is the output. So very simple. Now I was saying, let's assume Visual Studio did not find our interpreter, or since we have Anaconda installed, most people prefer they always like Visual Studio to use Anaconda. Let me show you an example. For example, you know very well Anaconda comes with matplotlib installed or Numpy installed, but our Python doesn't have most of those Anaconda based libraries. So let's say now we need to use matplotlib. So we say import matplotlib, import Numpy. Okay. Now let's try to run this just to make sure our code is fine. Now they told us matplotlib cannot be found, which means we haven't downloaded the matplotlib package for Python. But now we know we have Anaconda, and by default Anaconda comes with matplotlib and Numpy. We may decide to install matplotlib and Anaconda, you understand, like manually. But let's just say for now, let's not do that. Let's try to use instead the Python interpreter given to us by Anaconda. So what do? The first thing you do is that you enter the command for the command shell for Visual Studio Code by typing what do you type? Like check that. All right, so we need to type control followed by shift then P. Now we have to type a command Python, or this already it, you type Python colon select interpreter. So once you do this, check what happens. Give it some time. All right, so now here are the different interpreters of Python. You see currently it's on our Python, normal Python installed on our computer. What we want to do is to make it to be Anaconda. You understand? So let's try to use Anaconda own version of Python. That this here is what Anaconda does when it launches Visual Studio from within it. Select it as the environment. Now let's try this to run this. You see, everything works perfectly well. I just wanted to say everything works perfectly well. So can change it from Anaconda, like the interpreter used by Visual Studio from the normal Python interpreter installed on your PC to that is coming that's that which is installed with Anaconda, or that which Anaconda installs. So now I'm going to change it back by using Control Shift and P. Now look at what I'm going to do. Um, Select interpreter. I want to change it. I'll change it back to the normal Python interpreter. All right. So in this case now I can run the program. All right. Now I want to show you guys how we can download these two packages. Now to download your packages in Python, what you do is, for example, you will simply go to your command cmd run as admin. We need matplotlib installed. We need matplotlib installed. So we write pip install matplotlib. All right, it may not be pip. I think pip3. Pip3. All right, pip3 install matplot. All right, pip has not been added to our environmental variables. What do we do now? We have to look for pip, Python pip. So we can go directly to our environmental variables and check for properties. I think advanced system settings and environmental variables. All right, so here we need to add pip here. In order to do that, we're going to copy, find where Python is installed and find pip. All right, Python. Now we're going to run as admin, open file location, and from there we are looking for pip open file location. Pip should be somewhere around here. CPC libs or tools, or let me just write pip. Let's search for pip. All right, so pip, I think it's in this folder. um, Python 3.8. I think where is pip? Let's search for pip properly. To search here. Okay, open file location. Search here. Search for pip. Exe. Right. Here is the file I'm looking for. Um, all right. Here's the file I'm looking for. It's located in the pip or pip3. Let's open its properties. All right. So now we need to add this to our environmental variables, pip scripts, and then pip.exe, copy. Or you can use pip3, anyone you want. You can use pip3, pip 3.8, anyone you want. At they're all the same size, it's just the flavor of the command. I want to type pip3 on the command line. If you want, I mean pip, if you want to be typing pip on the pip3 on the command line, take the location of this. I just want to use the normal pip. They're all the same application, so you choose whichever you like. Now go to properties and copy this location, or you can just copy this location, or the location is complicated, so you could copy it from here, properties, and copy this location, copy, and you can even go to open location from here. Yeah, so here are the files. You see they're all executable files, so take any one you want. So you can copy now the location from here and copy. Now we go to our environmental variables and paste there. This is not important now. This is not important now. All right, so we create a new environmental variable and we paste pip there. So we want to move this up. All right, so Python scripts, and you should also look for pip in there. So okay, now I think we can say okay here. Now let's see what happens when we try to type pip3. All right, so go to CMD, try to run as admin. Yes, I'll type pip. All right, pip is installed. So I've shown you guys how to add pip to environmental variables. Now with pip in our environmental variables, what do we do? Um, we type now pip install matplotlib and wait. It may take a little bit of time. Matplotlib is a very big module, it's a very large module, so you should expect it to take some time to download. Oh, not really a lot of time. 7 MB. You need to download a couple of packages, a lot of them. So let's just give it some time. If it takes too long, I'm going to cut off this part. It actually downloads Pillow. Take note of this. It actually downloads Numpy. So if you try to install Numpy, it's going to tell us Numpy is already present. I just want you to take note of those stuff. All right. They tell us we can update our pip from version 2.1 to this, and it's not really difficult. You just need to say call python m pip install upgrade pip. So let's try that, python /m pip install upgrade pip. And it's going to, uh, we are just going to update our pip so they don't keep disturbing us about stuff about pip. All right, so we're good to go. Let's try to use pip install numpy. All right, numpy is already installed. Why? I told you guys matplotlib installed numpy. That's why you can see numpy here. Yeah, so once you install the package, it comes with packages it depends on. So for example, if you install numpy or scipy or whatever, they come with packages they depend on. So matplotlib needs numpy, so it actually downloads numpy. You need this one, q server, py parsing, py, and all this stuff. Pillow. So they're already satisfied. So in that case, we are good to go. We can close this, close this. Let's try now to execute this program. As you can see, it executed successfully. It didn't tell us again about model, whatever, whatever, which shows everything now is perfect. So I just want you guys to see how to install packages within Python. So now we can go on with whatever we want to. Um, let's now type this matplotlib and numpy. They're all installed now on our system. So our computer is going to find it. I think they said unused model. It should be unused rather than cannot be found. Well, we have it now, so we are ready to go. So now let me show you how to type a few, you can do a few pieces of code. Let's have a simple example. Now we want to we are going to show an example of how to use matplotlib shortly and numpy in a while, in a moment. So let me show you guys something. So let's say in case you want to create a program that actually goes through this list, list one is equals to, here is just a bonus 2, 10, 15, 6, 12, 2, 3, 5, 6, 4, 8, 7, 9, 4. Let's say you need to go through a list like this, and what you want to do is to count all the even numbers and odd numbers and save in this dict result. Your dict result is an empty Python dictionary with a key odd. Initially, we give it the value 0 and another key even. Initially, we give it the value 0. So at the end of our program, even should have the number of even numbers and odd should have the number of odd numbers within this list. Let's count the even numbers ourselves. We should expect to have odd equals to, here is how you comment in Python, sorry. We should have odd equals to, let's count the odd numbers ourselves first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, no, 6. All right. So we expect to see 6, 6 odd numbers. And let us count the even numbers. How many items do we have in the list? And let's just check. Then print and then list one. I want to just do a quick run to count for me. 15 items. So you say 15 minus 6 indicates we have even should, at the end of our program, even should be equals to 9. There are 9 even numbers in this list. You can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now what our program does is uses a for loop to go through each item, and if it finds an even number, it adds 1 to the dict result for odd, adds 1 to the odd key. That's a change, it increments the odd key by 1. If it finds an even number, it increments the value of the even key by 1. So for um, item in list 1, if item modulus 2 gives us 0, it implies it's an even number. What do? We say dict result. Or you see, Visual Studio has very good Intellisense. It already gives us the key values, so very good. So dict result even equals to dict result even plus 1. So else, if it's not an even number, it automatically means it's an odd number. Just copy this, odd, odd, odd. I think Visual Studio is a very good idea. Visual Studio Code. So let's now print at the end of our stuff. Let's print the tick results and see the output. You see, it gives us odd 6, even 9, and that's what we expected. So here is just a simple code, you know, we are trying to type. So let's save this. Like I said, you can always execute this program from anywhere if you want. Here is the program, Python. It mustn't be. You can even execute it from ideally Python. You can even edit it with ideally Python and execute it from there if you have ideally Python installed on your computer. You see, you can run it from here. Yes, you can run it from here if you want, or you can still use the command line by using Shift, right click, open Windows shell here, type Python and test 1.py. You still have the same result. So once you create your Python code, you can execute it from anywhere. Now let's try the last example before we end this. Let's try to do a an example using data science example. So we are just going to draw a simple sine wave now, and we're going to import our matplotlib matplotlib dot. You see, it gives us everything. Visual Studio is very good. Visual Studio Code, pyplot, um, from matplotlib.pyplot, import. We want to we actually want to install import matplotlib.pyplot, import matplotlib.pyplot, yes, as plt, as plt. Good. That's what, and we want to also import numpy as np. Now we want to do some stuffs. Numpy should be there. It's not there. I think we installed numpy. Let's first try to execute. That's one thing you should also do. Always try to execute your programs. There's numpy. I don't know why the Visual Studio Intellisense is not able to resolve numpy. I don't really know why. So, but no problem. Let's go. So, what next? We have to say and we also need math because we'll be using the sine function from the math module. Import math. So next, what do? We create the x-axis. We use the np dot. Visual Studio hasn't resolved numpy yet. Maybe it still needs some time. Maybe if we restart it, might pick up numpy. So we need to do things on our own from here. np.arrange, we start from 0, we end at pi pi times 2, that's 360. Then we have ranges of 0.05. And next, say now y should just be the sign of whatever we all the items we have in x, sign x. So next we say we want to plot plt dot plot already shows us what it needs. It needs x and a y axis, x and y axis. And next we say we create a label like plot dot x label c. Visual Studio helps us a lot. It can really spoil a young programmer to think you don't need to cram any function name or whatever. But it really helps for quick coding. Makes your coding very fast. Here plot dot y label You can say it should be sign, and we can also set the title of the whole figure, plot dot title, um, title, want to say sign wave. Now I think we should use plot dot show to do everything. Save and try to see what happens. Yeah, so there we go. We have actually plotted, and you can just save this in a file. Very easy. Desktop. So it's very easy. Just say desktop figure one. Your portable network graphic, that's PNG, and you're done. Where is it? Here is your plot. All right, so there you go. You're done. So you can plot any complex graph and just save a snapshot. This is it, Kinta. Kinta. We are going to learn this sometime, how to design graphic user interfaces. Here is just an example. You understand? So I think we have done a lot, and we should actually end this video now. I taught you guys how to install Visual Studio Code, how to configure it to change, to change the Python interpreter. I taught you guys how to, like, after installing the Python after installing the Python extension, I taught you guys how to change the interpreter. I taught you guys how to create a script and with the Visual Studio, how to run it by clicking this run button, and how to run even a script created in Visual Studio without Visual Studio. So I've taught you guys all that. So I think now we can say, and it's good, like, for a final note, our script can still be executed here. That's what I want you to know. If you open a PowerShell here, you're going to see you can type Python, and you still have your plot. So it's not Visual Studio trying to create helping us to create this graphics. It's Python doing everything. So don't think and it's Visual Studio doing it for us. I just wanted you to know that. So it's not, you can do it out of Visual Studio, so you can do it on your own. So there it is, and wherever you do that, it works perfectly. So I just want you guys to know. So I think this should be the end of this video. Yes, so I'll see you